Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome to another series where I'm going to be talking about efficient ways to make money in Tree of Savior. This series, specifically, we're going to be talking about dungeons. And we're going to start off talking about the most important dungeons. The first one being the 130 dungeon, the Fallen Lagman family dungeon located on Forest of Prayer. This dungeon is really important for two reasons. One is the first dungeon with a cool amount of silver that you can solo relatively easy at a low level, and it has really good drops from bosses. So let's talk about the pros and cons. The pros. This dungeon is pretty short, and it has a relatively high density of mobs. You can kill mobs in groups of 5 to 10 pretty easily. You don't have a lot of dragging around to do, and the mobs aren't really spread. There's not a lot of downtime. You don't spend a lot of time walking around without facing mobs. This dungeon also has a relatively high amount of net silver. You can net in pure silver around 250k silver per run. So this by itself means you can get 750k silver a day in this dungeon. This is without including possible drops from bosses. This dungeon has 2 bosses. This means you get at least 2 tout per run. This is pretty good since tout is always selling in the market to guild leaders and guild members. Another cool point is that both bosses drop boss cards, the Mine Loader and the Harpia. And last but not least, this is the place where you can drop the Petamion recipe. The Petamion recipe is a central part of what may be considered the most powerful necklace in the game, apart from Magni, which is focused on fire mages. The Max Petamion, the hardest ingredient of the Max Petamion, is the Petamion recipe. In Orsha, at the moment, this recipe goes for like 6 to 7 million silver. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. This drops, if I recall correctly, from the Mine Loader boss. So, the pros are high density of mobs, 250k silver per run, 2 bosses, big drops. Now, the cons. What I think personally is the most important con of this dungeon, and it makes me not want to solo it, is the layout. The layout of this dungeon is really bad because you can't just follow a straight line from the beginning to end. You have to start the dungeon and kill mobs in some places that lead nowhere. Then you kill mobs that lead to the last boss. Then you have to go to the first boss and kill mobs there. Or you go to the first boss and kill mobs on the way, come back killing nothing, and then kill mobs on the way to the last boss. So it's hard to find a really efficient path where you're always killing something in this dungeon. That's a reason why I don't like it. Comparing it to other available dungeons that have a similar difficulty level, you find out that doing this dungeon is not the best option if you're looking for pure silver drops. At the same time, it's relatively easy to farm and has good drops. Now, who would I advise to farm here? I would advise to solo this dungeon if you are an archer and you're not strong enough to solo the 145 dungeon fast yet. But in the end, I think it's a matter of trying. You have to try to solo this dungeon, plan a path to go through it as fast as you can, see how much silver you make, how much silver you spend, and how much time it takes you. Then you try to do the same on the 145 dungeon. See how much silver you make, how much you spend, what's your profit, and how much time it takes you. If this dungeon takes about the same time as the 145 for you, then I would advise you to do the 145. If this one is like 30% faster, then I would advise you to do this one because it leaves you extra time to do other things. What do you think about solo running the 130 dungeon? Have you done it? What are your thoughts? What other dungeon would you like to see in this series? Let me know in the comments. If you have any doubts or comments about this series or about anything else related to Tree of Savior, just let me know. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for the support. Have fun and see ya!